all. So, I think my timer has started. So, I am going to tell you a story that's based on a long and dear friendship of mine with Joyce Chitja. Joyce was the first black woman in KwaZulu-Natal to be awarded a PhD after the fall of apartheid. And Joyce and I share a deep passion for supporting small farmers as well as scheming. And so we together have developed and forged a really lovely relationship, and to the point where we actually think of each other as sisters. Or Sisi, which is what she calls me, which is Zulu for sister. So we decided we were going to start a project, and we were going to get students from Cornell and mix them up with students of hers and drop them in a village in South Africa and see what happened. We actually wanted them to develop research skills and sort of get a sense of how to work in community development. And so the place we picked was Swayamane. And Swayamane is actually a Zulu homeland. And so they retained their land through apartheid. And so they had a rich history of farming. But the farmers in Swayamane now are all women, black women, aged 40 to 60, who not only farm the land and grow vegetables, they also take care of their parents, their children, their siblings, and even their relatives who have HIV/AIDS. Their men are missing. The men have gone. They've gone off to work in other places or have been sort of lost to despair and unemployment and alcohol. So when we talk to these women, we ask them, so what are your challenges? And they say, We say, well, what about water? We don't have any trouble with water. And so then we gave them cameras and sent them out to take pictures of water and show us your water source. And they gave us back pictures of their children with buckets of water on their head. And they said, I don't have a problem with water. I think the kids do. And then we said, show us your tools. Show us what it is you use to farm. And they said, they gave us a beautiful picture of their tools all lined up nice and neat. A hoe, a machete, and a bucket. We don't have a problem. And so, but they did have a problem. And that problem was markets. What those women really wanted was to take their products off to a market that was about an hour and a half away in a town called Pietermaritzburg. And they were sure that if they could get their crops there, they could get a higher price and bypass all of the hawkers who were taking a cut. And so that's when Joyce and I started scheming. We found someone to give us a bus to haul them. And the students went into the village and they focused their effort on helping those women get ready to go to market, to give them training on what are the terms of contract, what are the marketing concepts they need to understand, and what are the questions they want to ask of these brokers when they're there. And then, so they formed these questions, and then we had role play. So they could practice asking these questions. And I played the role of kind of an asshole white broker who was dismissive and ignoring them because I wanted them to be able to continue to maintain their own civility and poise in a place that was uncomfortable. So the day arrived, and we were so excited. We got the bus. We were ready to go, and the women were absolutely, going nuts. You have to know that only 10% of those women had actually ever left their homeland and traveled to Pietermaritzburg. So not only were they going to see a market, they were going to actually go on a road trip. So we told them, you have to be at the bus, 7:30 sharp. You can't be late because you have to be at the market by 9. And they're like, okay, so no CP time. You must be there on time. And they did. Not only were they there on time, they were there early. And when we arrived as a research team, they were actually standing there and they had their clipboards and they were ready with their questions and they were all in their best. They were shining. And so we're like, oh my God. And so at that moment we stopped and we had a prayer and the women sang. And they sung in a 4-part harmony that to this day still makes me cry. So we walk into what is a traditional terminal market. And I think if you're farming, you know what I mean. A big open space with a lot of loading docks down the side and this bustle of pallets and things happening, moving vegetables around, and there was just all this stuff. And Joyce and I had arranged for a few brokers to come forth. And what happened was the first fellow was a tall Afrikaner, nice guy. And the women surrounded him. And they stood there and they had their questions. And they started to ask them. And they're asking their questions in Zulu. And Joyce is translating. into English for the broker. And it was amazing because they just had one question after another, and they were getting all the answers they want. We will pay in 48 hours. You can bring everything and we'll sell it all. And it doesn't matter the quality, we have a market. And so at that moment, a woman who hadn't actually said very much the whole time stepped forward. And she wanted to ask a question when she hadn't actually said anything all week. And she stood there and she was sort of looking at the ground. And she asked a question. And my Cece Joyce, she said, "Say that again." And then she asked the question again. And then Joyce looked at me. And she gave me that, "Oh shit, look." And then she just said, "Will you buy from me as a small farmer?" And this guy said, "Yes, of course, we'll buy from you. We want to support small farms." And the women, even though they didn't understand what he was saying, they were like, yes, they got it. They could see his enthusiasm, and everyone started to buzz. At that moment, Joyce, while they were all chatting away, came up to me and she goes, "Cece, that was not the question that she asked." And I said, "What?" And she said, she asked, "Will you buy from me, a black woman?" And I just looked at her and I said, "And you know, every time she asked that question, Joyce, we're going to translate it the same. Do you buy from a small farmer?" Joyce and I knew at that moment we had crossed a line. We knew that we were no longer acting as researchers, that we were no longer representing what we had thought we were doing in this space. We were then farmers, and we were women of color. And we had our hatchet, we had our machete, we had our hoe, and our bucket, and our anger. At that moment, we were slashing through a whole field of internalized oppression. And we really wanted to clear that field and make space for hope. And all we could think of and see in our own hearts and it was their eyes and their smiles. So afterwards, we went to lunch, and the ladies were celebrating. They were ecstatic. And I said, "What are you going to do now?" And they said, "We're going to go talk to that white farmer, and we're going to buy a used tractor. And we're going to go over there, and we're going to buy irrigation pipe and expand our production. And we're going to go home, and we're going to talk to our kids, because we want them to keep farming, because we can do it." Joyce, it was truly remarkable. So what's happened since then? Well, they've done it. There are some women who are selling into that market, and other women who got contracts for sugarcane, and they're selling commercially. And one woman was voted the Farmer of the Year for her sweet corn in South Africa. For Joyce and me, it was an amazing day and the most rewarding day of my professional career. Because I knew at that moment my heart was so full, and I felt so rich. But all of it was based on a lie. And now all of you know what was a secret that was just between sisters.